In the House, I do believe Lynn Fitch, the Attorney General.
I think they're in there. I'm not sure.
And also Sean Tindell. Turn on the cameras here. There they are. There they are. Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see both of you. Big sermon going on. First of all, you just jump in here, Sean first, or the Attorney General, one way or the other. But just what is this about?
Oh, it's been a great summit, and of course, getting to work with the commissioner and the Department of Public Safety, and to have, this is our third day of information and meetings and discussions. It's just been phenomenal, to bring together all of the different law enforcement agencies, bring the police departments, sheriff's departments, investigators, our advocates, our prosecutors. Again, this is the first time ever to have us all together and to talk about the issues, the challenges, and the opportunities.
That is the question I had just thought about is, Sean, why haven't we done this before many years ago?
Well, good question. I mean, I can tell you that I know the General and myself, every year we set out and we talk to the different associations. They get together, the sheriff associations, police chiefs, fire chiefs, and they just never have come together as a collective. And so one of the missions Governor Reeves set me out on was to improve relationships between state agencies and local agencies, and I just thought this was a great way to bring those voices together, not only have conversations and fellowship about what affects public safety, but also provide some additional training and leadership training and discussions, and I think that's been a big impact, and I know something particularly the smaller departments have enjoyed was getting some of that leadership training. I go back to prior to Katrina when we had this lack of communication. We know how important things were as far as networking, but we didn't have any networking with law enforcement, and it really showed up as far as our communication skills on being able to communicate during a disaster. And I think we learned a lot from that one, did we not? Absolutely. And we've come a long way with Miss Win. I think 80 of our 82 counties are on Miss Win. So when we have these events, we can get on the same communication channels and have those discussions. And so I think we've come a long ways, and we still got a little bit of ways to go. But things like this help facilitate that going forward.
General Fitch, what do we learn in this one so far? Is it just things that all that just hits you square in the face and said, geez, we didn't think about that? But
well, the commissioner I talked about what would be some of the best information to get out there, share best practices, bring in phenomenal speakers. Again, an opportunity for all of these individuals and groups to network, and it's been extremely successful. But hard topics, Paul. I mean, certainly things that we all need to take on, such as human trafficking, the opioid crisis. What could we all do? Then we've hit so many other things like behavioral analysis, having the team leader of the Navy SEALs, the 6th team, to come in and talk about what it's like to lead a team. And as the commissioner said, this is a lot about leadership, too. How can we provide these skill sets, these resources, these tools so they can go out and go forward and be the leaders within their own organizations?
I want to go back. You look at things like you talked about human trafficking, and it kind of all ties together, certainly with what is happening on the border right now, which is it's transformative. It's that important of what's going on. You literally see hundreds of thousands. They say it could be in the millions that are coming through as far as doing away with Title 42. But most of these are young men, and we have no idea where they're going to go, who they are, and we've already seen the arrest of a lot. And we were talking yesterday about we don't think sometimes that it affects the state of Mississippi, but as far as illegals and the immigration situation, it does affect us.
Absolutely. We are seeing human smuggling happening every day, and the trafficking is just horrific. Just horrific. So, yes, we are getting some of those individuals coming into the state of Mississippi. Then we're still having so many issues where particularly young women, and now we're seeing a lot more of the young men that are being trafficked within our own state, children. It's just unbelievable. The commissioner and I, all of our teams, we've been working together. We're doing a number of multi-jurisdictional operations. We've done over 40 together, and together as our teams, just in Mississippi in the last couple of years rescued over 200 individuals. But at the same time, we've been able to go after these predators, Paul, and we've arrested at least 60 60 of them. And so, again, trying to say it's not going to work here in Mississippi. Our goal is to work together and to eradicate human trafficking. One of our speakers yesterday and last evening was Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard runs Operation Underground Railroad. Look at it, Google it, talk about it. It's an amazing project that he started. He quit his job at Homeland Security to rescue children. He does it, he and his team now do it globally, and they also have domestic operations. So human trafficking is real. And again, it's all of us coming together, working with our resources, providing tools and support for one another.
John, have we learned anything where some of our weaknesses are?
Sure, and that's really one of the points of the conference, and it might not be specifically on human trafficking, although that was a point. But we've had these breakout sessions where we've talked about dealing with media, promoting your agency, leadership, in our minimum standards and training, trying to improve training, and that's been a big discussion at the conference. Is what can we do to improve first responder training and law enforcement training so that we can make sure that they're ready to be on the front line, especially in today's world where there's so much media attention and you have folks that basically have cell phones in your face when you make a traffic stop. And now we're expecting law enforcement officers to not only do their job as a law enforcement officer, but they have to be marriage and family therapy counselors. They have to be mental health professionals. They have to be constitutional scholars. And so there's so much more pressure put on them, and we've got to provide better training in that aspect.
Did we ever think that maybe a psychologist during the training, the police training academy, was probably going to be one of the more important people? But I see some of this stuff on social media, and you almost have to just have a master's degree in self-control to what is going on, how they are being approached on the streets. And I mean, if you get somebody who's just relatively nice at them, they're probably going to let you out of a fine. They'll be so proud to have that. But it's just gotten crazy, the disrespect for police officers.
I agree. And look, it takes a mental toll. And I've said this going back to 2020 when I first took this job, and my dad was a Vietnam veteran, and one of the things that hurt him the most was the way he was treated when he came home. Yeah. He had plenty of scars from Vietnam, but the scars that were thrown on him when he got home and people were protesting and spitting on him at the airport, that's what our police officers are going through right now. And we've got to take a hard look at it as a country, how we treat law enforcement.
We absolutely positively demand that every police officer have respect for the people, but it's also on the other way around also. So, did the court system play into this at all, Lynn? Do we look at the court system in here as far as DAs? Has that been a part of the topic?
Oh, absolutely. The DAs are tremendous partners working together. Mm-hmm. There were so many of them that have been represented at this summit, but they certainly have been our strong partner since we all took office. And that's been amazing because, again, as you think about the crimes that are being committed, having the partnerships, how you prosecute, again, knowing that we are a supportive team, whether we're providing testimony, evidence, or whatever the case might be, it has been very unified. And I think that's shown great strength across our state to say that, look, we're fighting crime and we support our law enforcement. We absolutely, back the blue in the state of Mississippi.
The porn investigations that you guys do at the Attorney General's office has always paid off, continues to pay off. And that, in a way, has connected some, I would imagine, to human trafficking, is it not?
It is. We absolutely are always looking for child exploitation issues, and they're there. I wish I could say that we don't have that. We run the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, certainly our partners with the commissioner and other members on the task force. And it's alarming, Paul, to think that people are exploiting these young children day in and day out. So we are all on a mission to find those pedophiles and put them in jail.
Talk more about this in a moment or two. I saw a stat, and I'm looking for it. I can't find it. I think it says something like every 56 seconds or something, a child disappears. And if they're not found in just literally within a couple of hours, the chance that they will not survive is just scary. But it's a little bit frightening to know that's going on across this country. More in just a moment. Okay, let's get back live with the Attorney General Lynn Fitch and Commissioner of Public Safety Sean Tindell in the Trustmark studios. From business loans to online tools, cash management, it's all there for you. Trustmark fits your business to a T. Member FDIC. I don't think we kind of touched on it, either one of you. Who all is part of this symposium in this group here that's putting this together?
Well, the General and I are co-hosts of the event,
Yeah.
and together with the Police Chiefs Association, Sheriff's Association, Prosecutors Association, and other public safety officials, we were able to put on this event. And we do have a number of corporate sponsors and vendors that have come out to be a part of it. And so it's really been led a team effort between our two agencies, but really all these other public safety officials have played a key part in getting the word out to their association and getting attendees up. I think we've had about 350 attendees.
Yes, it's been a great attendance.
Is it over, or is it still going on?
Still
Today
going on.
was our last day.
So it's a four-day event or 3-day event?
3-day, absolutely.
Are we going to make this annual, or?
Yes, it's been so highly successful and an opportunity for everyone to come together. You know, it's always so much about being unified and the opportunity to network. And so to have all these different folks here, like the commissioner said, on so many levels, whether they're our prosecutors, our law enforcement, our victims advocates, everyone rallying together has just been so informational and so impactful.
Sean, you know this also, that you take some of this material, what you've learned, and it has to make its way through some type of bill in the legislative process if that is needed. Do you see anything arising to that point?
I think we will. I mean, there's been some discussions about several issues that are affecting public safety, and if there is legislation needed, that maybe we need to get together in the fall and talk about some of those issues as a collective group. And you know, things like death benefits for first responders come to mind, where we are with that, and making sure that we're on the same page. And here's what's happened over the years. The Police Chiefs Association and the Sheriff's Association have gotten bills that have gone through that affected their law enforcement, but state law enforcement was left out, or vice versa. And so hopefully by doing this, when we have key legislation like that is proposed, it's for all law enforcement, not just one sector of it.
I'm sure nobody mentioned, as far as any county sheriffs, about radar. I'm sure that wasn't mentioned.
You know, surprisingly, I don't think we talked about that, but I'm sure now that you've brought it up, it'll be on the agenda today. So
They're probably saving it for last.
that's right. They're going to leave for the next time.
Look, in some areas, it is a niche area where you get the city kind of overlapping with the growth of the county in some of these areas, like North Mississippi and even in the Jackson area, some places like Madison or some of the other counties. But, I mean, it's just, it's one of those things that comes up every year. I think it's been coming up for the last, 30, 40 years as far as radar is concerned. But I look at some of the laws that we passed this year, and just while I've got both of you in here, any comments on some that are rolling in that were under discussion that we need to prepare for July the 1st?
Absolutely, and that's another point of the conference, to talk about some things like that. You know, we had the sexual assault kit bill that passed. That in the past, sexual assault kits, it was not required that they be turned over to the crime lab for analysis. And as Chairman Cockerham led the effort in the House on getting this bill passed, and has done it for a couple of years. And what it will do is require that all sexual assault kits in the state be tested, and then that the results of that can be put into a crime database where we can do a much better job of catching rapists, and especially serial rapists. And so we've got to educate the sheriffs and police chiefs on the requirements there, as well as doctors and nurses at hospitals. Attorney General played a big role in that, because, again, that's something that ties into human trafficking. And if we can identify these perpetrators, then we can also break down these networks where children are being kidnapped and put into this life.
I can't think of a better time to have this, because there's so many things changing. General Fitch, I'm going to do this one, try to sneak it in tomorrow if we find some time for it. But I got 3 reports that are attached to this and collated with marijuana. A new report released by Smart Approaches to Marijuana is the name of the organization. show the reality in pot legal states paints a vastly different picture than the common sales pitch of the industry and supporters of legalization. And some of the stuff that they found out here, the transformation in some of these states, certainly the ones like Colorado and those who have had it for a long time, is not good. The homelessness, the addiction, what is going on as far as the next generation, and it looks even worse for the next generation behind that coming up with the potency of some of this marijuana. But that has to be a big part of this conference, I would imagine, how law enforcement is going to address this.
Well, it is, and it's important for everyone to understand what the laws state right now. But, you know, it's always a moving, flexible target. We're always continuing to do research. I've not seen those reports particularly, Paul, but certainly we are always looking, learning, trying to educate ourselves, the law enforcement, everyone that's involved, because, again, the drugs are so very differently, and certainly with the medical marijuana here is a different setup than some of the other places with the marijuana. And unfortunately, we're seeing not only in our state the illegal marijuana that's laced with fentanyl. Fentanyl is a problem for our country, for our state. It is coming in. It is will kill you with just a few granules, almost like of salt. You can just absorb it, take it. They're counterfeited in as well, and so many different pills that people are buying on the street and have no idea. One of the things that passed in the legislature this year, and again, working with the commissioner and his team, again, how we could do some preventive so that we could get some drug kits out there to help individuals to test all of their drugs to make sure they don't have fentanyl. So we no longer have fentanyl strips considered drug paraphernalia. And you'll see us, all of us make a push to try to help individuals to keep them from going down that pathway, because it's alarming. You know, just last year alone in the state of Mississippi, those we could identify, we lost over 200 individuals who are somebody's child, mother, father to fentanyl overdose that you never saw coming. And as I was talking to a group yesterday, I said, but, you know, it's like if a big plane crashed right out here, we'd all be alarmed and we'd jump to the action and implement changes. That's happening, and we need to jump. We need to start being very alarmed about this situation and save lives.
Maybe we should put mass in the word, like mass shooting, in front of that, because it is mass deaths and it happens every single day, and you're absolutely right. And we've got a lot better chance of losing some of our loved ones through the fentanyl than we do in climate change, but apparently that doesn't resonate in Washington, D.C. So is there any one or two things, Sean, that the county sheriffs and police department personnel are saying we need more than anything else? I understand funding is always a major priority, but is there something that you probably didn't realize that they were short of, or a law that maybe needed to be enforced or put forth in the legislative process?
Well, one of the things that has come out of the meeting, and I'm glad it has, is that, you know, outside of salary, which we all want better salary for law enforcement officers, but better training and better mental health evaluations for law enforcement. You know, again, going back to, you know, we talk a lot about PTSD for veterans, but those effects have been very real for law enforcement officers too. And so there's been a lot of discussions about the treatment for law enforcement officers and the training that they receive. And, you know, for a long time, the sheriffs have not been required to have annual certification for their deputies. And so we've had some talks about the training for sheriff's deputies, and it needs to get there. So that's been really good. And I do want to mention this. Today is the last day of the summit. We are recognizing the ones that have gone above and beyond this year. Commissioner Cheney's recognizing the firefighter of the year. Attorney General Fitch is recognizing the prosecutor of the year, and I'm going to be giving an award for the law enforcement officer of the year, and the governor is going to be giving out awards for the first responders of the year and the Medal of Valor today. And that's really going to be, I think, a great celebration of those that have done a wonderful job, and a recognition of those that have shown extreme valor.
Where is this being held?
It's at the Refuge.
Is it?
Refuge. It's been a great place to help.
We'll give you final thoughts when we come back in a moment. You know, the other thing on here is, and we see this across the board, is the quality of recruits, whether it's in the armed forces or the police department. And believe it or not, that has been a big issue with all police departments, sheriff's office, and everybody else. Final thoughts from the Attorney General and the Commissioner of Public Safety when we return. You recently launched an SVU. Am I missing this? What does SVU stand for to the Attorney General?
Paul, it's an exciting new division. We started the Special Victims Unit.
Yep.
We're thrilled to have that because there are so many different victims, and we really wanted to bring that together to provide assistance. I mean, these victims need assistance from every level, and unfortunately, too many of us know victims that have suffered. So this particular type victims assistance unit, I mean, therefore, the sexually abused victims, our children who have been exploited, our elders. We have so much elder abuse that is happening. So there's so many crimes against women. Mm-hmm. So again, this is bringing this all together and creating this unit, and they're phenomenal. Again, having that mindset, understanding the needs of these victims, and then being able to provide those assistance for those victims.
Any from either one of you, was the parole board a part of this conversation, or the Department of Corrections? Sean, anybody?
The Department of Corrections a little bit, but really the parole board hasn't been discussed as much. And I know there's a lot of discussion going on about a decision that they had rendered regarding the parole of the individual that had murdered, I believe, his father and stepmother. And so, look, I think there's going to have to be a serious look at how that's handled. Of course, the Miller decision that led to that, dealt with folks that have been sentenced under the age of 18 to life sentences, and they're eligible for parole according to the Supreme Court. So I think there's got to be.
Wait a minute. Wait. Can you clear this up? Are they eligible for parole, or are they eligible to be considered for parole?
They're eligible to be considered for parole.
Okay.
They don't have to be granted the parole,
okay,
but they're eligible to be considered for it. And so
I got you.
So, I think we got to have a serious talk about that, and especially when it comes to violent crimes and the perpetrators of the violent crimes and how the victims are notified about these matters. So, there's a lot to be considered, and I'm sure some legislation will come out of it.
I had the relatives on this week again, and to General Fitch there, I got to tell you, you talk about victims' needs. I consider these people victims, and they at least they need to be heard.
They certainly are victims. They've lost loved ones taken right out in front of them, and certainly there should be the consequences. And so they are suffering. They've lost loved ones that they never saw coming like that, particularly from the violator to, again, murder of the father and the stepmother. So they definitely need that care and some recognition for what they're going through, not just based on here the basic lines and basic lines of parole, but absolutely taking into account the horrific times that they've been through and the suffering that they've been through.
I got to be honest with you. I don't know how I missed it, but I don't think I did. We've interviewed several people. I've read all I could on this one, and until we got those two letters from the legislative force there, I had no idea the amount of dismemberment that went into this also. So you talk about gruesome. It certainly was gruesome. Final thoughts from the Commissioner of Public Safety, Sean Tindell. Go ahead, sir.
Well, just thankful to be here today, and thank y'all for giving this opportunity to come on and talk about issues with public safety, and just really proud of the event that the General has put on with us and those that have contributed to making it happen. We have a lot of events coming up for fallen officer memorials in the month of May. We've had a lot of events for victim recognition in April and May, and so it really brings it all together when these law enforcement officers are sitting there taking this job, taking on the task, and to a T, you ask any of them, do you do it for the money? No, not one of them do it for that. They do it because they're passionate about making these communities safe and helping victims.
While I have you here, we got a new recruit class, and what's the status of that?
We do. We're set for a graduation May 26. We'll have about 45 to 48. You never know exactly how many are going to graduate, but that's going to be a lot of new troopers. Out at Melota, the director there, Tony Carlton, is changing the schedule up so that we can have 4 basic classes out there a year, and so we're going to be getting more basic law enforcement officers out there, and just really proud of the work of the team at DPS, and
Good.
again, working with the attorney generals. They've been providing some classes for us so that we can better train these officers on constitutional law and the laws of the state, and so it's really, really a team effort, which is good to see between our two agencies because it hasn't always been that way.
General Fitch, final thoughts, ma'am?
Well, it's been an amazing time for us all to be together, and we appreciate you allowing us to highlight this summit. And it truly is about our law enforcement, all of the members that are engaged, from the law enforcement to our advocates to our prosecutors, and they truly do it because they do have the heart, the service component, and we're so grateful and we appreciate them. And as the commissioner said, this is a big law enforcement month, again, talking about our fallen officers, recognizing them, again, recognizing the rights of our crime victims, and again, just letting everyone know how grateful we are that we have amazing law enforcement officers that protect us every day.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your taking the time to come in.